Welcome back to Occasional Randomness. I'm your host, Eric Scott, and joining me, as always, is my fellow co host, someone who probably did not see the ending coming, Jason Johnson.
No, and no thank you for not anyway. You just like didn't give me a heads up on that one. That to be continued screen. Ugh. Yeah.
That's one thing you have to experience for yourself. So you can feel my pain 23 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, well I got it.
Yeah, and it's a sad day. Tonight we're wrapping up the regular series of Farscape with the series finale, season 4, episode 22, the appropriately named Bad Timing. But at least we get the Peacekeeper Wars miniseries to wrap it all up, which isn't always a given with TV shows back then or even today, actually.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we'll dive into it as when we get there, but I have to tell you up front, I can't imagine having that uncertainty when you watch that ending live way back in the day. I mean, ugh.
Yeah, because I mean that was it. That was back in the dark days of like nothing. It's like, yeah, that's it. So, but yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
And yeah, as always, if you like what we do here, please give us a like or a review or help spread the word and let people know about us. We'd appreciate it so much. All right,
All right.
so
So
you're up to end the whole damn thing. Go for it.
all right. So for the last time, Farscape season 4, episode 22, Bad Timing. And the end begins with an ultimatum. High above Moya, Captain Braca and a Peacekeeper command carrier are hovering on the doorstep. Scorpius is back on the carrier, sending messages that the Scarans have found the coordinates for Earth and are already en route to invade. John's skeptical, suspecting another one of Scorpius's long con manipulations, but Aaron forces him to face the hard truth. John himself told the Scarans that the power boosting chrysanthemum flowers grow on Earth.
Say what?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we missed something there, but
Sure,
we'll
he did.
we'll get to that too.
But Scorpius offers him a deal: ally Earth with the Peacekeepers, and he will protect the planet. John refuses to let his home be used as a pawn in intergalactic war, but as Aaron points out, he's terrified of the alternative. The tension between John and Aaron is at an all time high as they recount their private arguments to Dargo and Chiana. While they bicker over commitment issues, the clock is ticking. John decides on a desperate third option. He's going to seal the wormhole to Earth forever. But first, he has to deal with Scorpius. In a bold move, John and Aaron spacewalk Scorpius and Sikozu out of Moya's airlock, drifting them back towards the command carrier with a nuclear bomb strapped to Scorpius's chest as a parting gift. As they float away, Sikozu screams, "Weak species," and Scorpius warns John that he is dooming his world. Back on the ruined base of Katratzi, Emperor Stalek confirms the nightmare. He reveals to War Minister Akna that a strike force is indeed headed for Earth to claim the flowers, because they're on Earth. Back on Moya, John is spiraling, trying to calculate how to collapse a wormhole. He's losing hope, telling Aaron he's going to fail because there's just not enough time. Aaron's response is simple: heavy. It's always about time. John eventually realizes he can't do this alone. He needs to pierce the bubble of the wormhole at the precise millimicrot, something his human coordination can't handle. He begs Pilot for help. In a grueling, agonizing procedure, Pilot agrees to be physically severed from Moya and placed into a transport pod with John and Aaron to guide this maneuver. Stark and a temporarily blinded Chiana struggle to keep the ship's systems running as Pilot screams in pain. The plan works as they reach the wormhole near Earth. John makes one final, heart wrenching phone call to his father from the moon. He tells Jack he has to seal the door to keep the Scarans out, effectively saying goodbye to his family forever. Jack tells him, "You're the heart and soul of my life, son," before they hang up. In the wormhole, Pilot successfully pierces the bubble. The Scaran Trike team, led by Pinnock, enters the collapsing tunnel just as it implodes, vaporizing the invaders and sealing Earth away from the rest of the galaxy. Safe for the moment, Moya finds refuge on the water world of Kwajaga. John and Aaron take a small boat out into the calm sea. Rigel, watching from the viewer window, mutters, "Simpletons." Crichton has Aaron in a boat. Out on the water, Aaron drops a bombshell. Her pregnancy stasis has ended, and the baby is his. Not sure if that was the bombshell. We saw that, but anyway. John's ecstatic, shouting, "We're going to have a baby," at the top of his voice. Watching from Moya, Dargo tells Chiana John seems very, very angry. John drops to one knee. I think he's hurt himself, Rigel surmises from a distance. John asks, "Will you marry me?" And Aaron says yes. John pulls out his mother's engagement ring and slips it on her finger. Dargo narrates the action to a blind Chiana, who laughs and asks if they haven't seen any Earth movies. Crichton just proposed. She says, "Marriage? Idiot," Rigel mutters, but floating off unimpressed.
And that's it. Show's over. Good. All right.
Yep. No, wait. As they share their first engaged kiss, a strange alien scout ship from the Quajagan Eidolon, say that 3 times fast, hovers over them. As the pilot's head splits open to reveal a scanning eye, the order comes in: neutralize invaders for analysis. Dargo shouts for them to get back inside, but John screams back, "Give me a break, we're in a boat." Aaron looks at John and whispers, "You and your timing." He smiles, tells her, "I love you," and they kiss passionately just as the alien ship fires. In a horrific instant, John and Aaron are hit by a crystallization beam. They are briefly frozen mid kiss before shattering into thousands of crystalline shards that rain down into the boat. Dargo breaks down into a heart-rending wails as Chiana embraces him in sorrow. In the boat, nothing remains but a pile of gem-like shards and his mother's engagement ring, sitting upright in the remains. All right, little trivia from this episode. The original title was going to be No Turning Back, but they changed it after news of the show's cancellation hit. The montage at the beginning of the episode featured 8 frames, 4 frames of 2 scenes respectively, from each episode up to the finale in the producer's preferred viewing order, with only A Constellation of Doubt missing, as that was actually the last filmed episode. Instead of the customary "and now on Farscape" that usually follows recaps, Ben Browder says, "Finally on Farscape." The Quajagan was an animatronic puppet. If the show had continued to a 5th season, plans were to have some of the Quajagans be puppets and others actors in makeup. This one was voiced by Ben Browder, which would have made some interesting scenes of him talking to himself. Kent McCord's scene was filmed while he was in Australia filming Kansas and Terra Firma. Ben Browder's side of the scene was filmed 3 months later. The final scenes with Aaron and Crichton in the boat were filmed on the water near the studio. Nearby apartment blocks were removed from the background up by the special effects department in post-production. For only the 3rd time in the series, following Scratch and Sniff and Crichton Kicks, it features altered music. The regular Farscape theme song isn't played during the closing credits. The silence was to mark the show's passing. Brian Hansen credits the tireless, unwavering efforts of Farscape fans with motivating the production of Farscape: The Peacekeeper Wars, the miniseries sequel to the series that continued the story and wrapped many of the dangling plot threads unanswered in this finale. Chiana has been permanently blinded by the latest use of her powers. Despite the opening credits monologue indicating 3 years since Crichton was shot through the wormhole, the scene in which Crichton recites the version of the monologue on screen indicates it has now been 4 years since the events of the premiere. Kent McCord makes his final appearance as Jack Crichton. He is the only ongoing character not to appear in some way in the Peacekeeper Wars miniseries. And finally, Crichton, Aaron, Dargo, Rigel, Pilot, and Jack are the only characters to appear in both this episode and premiere. All right, so now that we've settled in for a period of uncertainty, as we leave our finally reconciled and engaged couple in literal pieces on the floor of the boat, where we pick up.
So imagine this is early 2003. The internet's still kind of new, and pretty much all of your information about your TV shows that you love comes from other TV shows or entertainment magazines or sci-fi magazines, unless for some reason you were really into Usenet forums on the internet back in those days. So, maybe you heard that your favorite TV show of all time up to that point, Farscape, was ending and it wasn't renewed. But, you hope that, okay, they had time to know all that and wrap things up nicely. And then you watch it and you scream like Dargo did at the ending. So that, that's pretty much what I remember 23 years later. So, and I definitely was not a happy camper. I was pretty furious at the Sci Fi Channel. That's what they were called back then for canceling it. But being a diehard sci-fi fantasy fan, I eventually got over it and went on with my life. Farscape is just another in a sea of science fiction TV shows that I loved that came to an unhappy, too early, and pretty unsatisfactory ending. But little do I know at that point that there was light at the end of the tunnel 18 months later.
So yeah, I felt that similar betrayal as probably a lot of us did when Fox, which became famous for canceling shows, canceled Firefly. And then for me, immediately again, that same Fox canceled Drives, which we can discuss maybe a different podcast at some point. But yeah, this one actually feels worse to me because, well, I'll explain it as we go.
But yeah, so yeah, just add this to the pile of, like I said, TV shows that I love that were canceled unfairly or whatever. And I can go on. You listed yours. We've got. I talked off air about like, I think it was Almost Human. That was one with Carl Urban as the detective with his android partner, and that got like I think like one season. And I told you about the Blake Seven, the British sci-fi show that lasted 4 seasons, like Farscape, and that ended at the worst possible cliffhanger where you have no idea if anybody's alive or not. So that one really sucks. But
Yeah, there's just something about sci-fi shows. They seem to like to just kill them midstream as opposed to letting them at least wrap. But
yeah, but yeah, I mean, overall, I thought this was a great episode of Farscape. Yeah, it had all the wonderful things we love about the show. Although this one was a little more fast paced with the plot and the scenes, which we'll get into here. A lot of like jump cuts, weird edits, which I don't know if they're going out on a high note or they're just that's just what they wanted to do. But it did answer some questions that we had last episode. Stark's still on Moya, and he's still as insane as ever. And apparently, many people, at least some people, survived on Katratzi. The Scaran Emperor and Akna are the two ones that we care about, so they're still around. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty much your typical Farscape episode. It's got lots of crew drama, humor, action, maybe too much action. We'll get to the end here. And actually, two scenes that kind of made me really sad watching it. One between John and his dad, which is really touching, and of course, the ending scene, which we'll talk about for sure. But so definitely, I give it two thumbs up. It's one of the good ones of the season, for sure. Maybe of the whole series. Who knows? We can argue about that when we get to the possible let's recap the whole thing episode. But but what do you think?
yeah, I mean that's a good point. Not sure if it's sentimentality because it is the last, but it definitely falls in the upper end of the episodes overall. I mean, I think we get a lot of good stuff in this. We love the crew dynamics. That's always been what made the show. So having a lot of that in this episode, little bit up front, with the wormhole, but and again, we'll walk through the whole plot. But um, yeah, I think they did a good job of pacing it so that you had both the action, but the crew dynamic and some resolution. And I probably only have one qualm or possible qualm. I'm interested to get your opinion on it as we go. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive in.
All right. So yeah, so we kick off the episode, but like you said, the trivia is a little different. We open with a couple of frames of each episode from season one, episode one premiere up until last episode, minus the one because they hadn't filmed it yet. So I don't know why they couldn't come back and put clips in for that one, but whatever. Anyway, and then Ben saying, "And finally" on Farscape. It's like, ooh, yeah, just twist the knife right at the beginning. But although I thought, it's a nice touch though. And of course the silent ending credits, which was just yeah, I was like, ooh, yeah, okay, yeah, nice touch. Which yeah, I mean, they couldn't change the ending, I guess, given that the order they filmed it in, because they didn't really know it was canceled. But then they did. But there's always post production, so it's like I don't know how much they could have done, but I do appreciate that the fact that they at least got to give us a little nod to the fans. They just give us little things of like kind of like silent appreciation, right? Of thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah, you can completely agree. Though my wound is still fresh here. I think my question is, could they have done more? Probably not. But like you said, they did at least give us a lot of closure. And while it does end on a cliffhanger, they wrapped up a whole lot of stuff that we could have been left without. So that's appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, it did kind of start off a little jarringly, at least for me. Maybe I think for you too, but there are like lots of jump cuts between like the current time with Aaron and John and then back to Scorpius and Braca. I guess, talking to the camera, which is, I guess, to John and Aaron or whatever, first person or whatever, talk about you're surrounded, don't leave, and oh, by the way, whatever. And then we have like looks like a flashback from the last episode where tells the Scared Emperor that the Cressarian flowers is also on Earth, and it's called the Bird of Paradise flower. I was like, "What? Did I miss something?" I actually had to back it up. I'm like, "Wait, is what?" And I guess that's the whole point of this episode. Now the Scarens are off to Earth, to the wormhole, and don't think about the fact that wait, don't non people like John that know how to work the wormhole get liquefied when they go through the wormhole? Nah, we don't need to know about that. Just keep going. And would they wind up at Earth or in alternate reality or somewhere else? Nah, no, ignore that part. Just but yeah, so so many questions, but they're firing all this at you in like the first what like 2 minutes of this episode that you just kind of have to just go with it.
Yeah, and it's good to know that I wasn't the only one who was really confused at the start. I mean, I usually am. That's pretty fair. A lot of these episodes, the opening to most Farscape episodes, I feel like I'm just lost for the first 5 minutes. But I actually stopped this one and went and checked to make sure I hadn't skipped an episode. It, I mean, we only have this episode left, so it's not like I could have missed anything, right? But I still was lost enough. I stopped and went and looked. I think that, like you said, that flower scene was only shown in this episode, even though it was supposed to be like a flashback. So they added it as an afterthought, which makes no sense because why would John mention Earth, you know, to the Scarens at all? Like, why would he give something away that would make them want to go? And I totally forgot about the liquefaction and the alternate realities using wormholes. So the frantic opening pace worked on me on that front because I totally forgot to even think about that. But the whole point of the last trilogy was he wasn't giving up wormhole tech, right? And now it's like, oh, they don't. Regardless of what he didn't give up, they can use their wormhole anyway. So, eh, that's my nitpick. That was probably my one nitpick of the episode, but it disappears pretty quick once it gets rolling.
Yeah, or I was thinking they just have extra stuff and they cut it out because they wanted to fit in all the other stuff from the trilogy because it was a pretty packed trilogy. So maybe they had to cut some stuff out, but still, that's kind of a major point you might not want to cut out if you're going to drop the ending of the season, which at the time they know was series. But still, it's like what?
Right, exactly. Yeah, just include the important part if it's going to be critical to the next stage. So,
Yeah, and then to speed the drama along, we get rid of Scorpius and Sikozu off the bat. Yeah. In a cool way, I'll give him that. They John has built another little mini nuke that looks just like the last one. It's got a different inscription on it. I think it said like "Hi John" or "Bye John." Where I can't remember what it said, but it's just something funny. And
he's getting pretty good at building these nukes. That's a little scary
yeah,
too.
no, and where do you get fissionable material? Anyway, so but yeah, they strap the nuke on Scorpy, shove him and Sikozu out the airlock towards the command carrier. So that's a good way to get away from them without being destroyed. Because if you try and shoot at us, boom goes Scorpy. And they have like one odd, creepy scene later on the command carrier with Baraka. I guess where they mentioned that Grace is in sedation in her prison or the brig or whatever. So we don't see her at all. And that's their last scene. Although Baraka looks kind of appalled or ill watching them have a little sexy time or whatever they were doing. But dude,
Can you blame him?
why are you watching them? Just go away. Ew.
Yeah. I guess maybe there was something in their contracts that they got the extra time on screen. Yeah. Uh, I did find it interesting that the crew just lumped Sikozu in with Scorpio on that exit, right? Like maybe she'd already gone over with him, I guess, in that flashback that I didn't miss. But I guess she's fully open about her siding with him at this point. It's just kind of, I don't know. I feel like that was a little quick, given that she was kind of part of the crew still in the last episode. Now it's like, nope, she's really a whatever with Scorpio
Yeah,
at this
because
point.
after what they're doing last time, I guess, I don't know, word gets out and John's like, "Nope, that's it. First time you're out of here."
Yeah. No conversations, just go
Yeah.
on.
Maybe Brecca is like jealous because he was like Scorpio's buddy and like right hand or whatever you want to call him, and how he was surprised to see him still alive back in the beginning of the season or whatever. So I don't know. Maybe that's just was going to sow the seeds of something in season 5 with him, Sikozu, and Scorpio that just didn't happen. I don't know.
Uh,
Whatever. We'll,
Moving on.
we'll never know. Yeah. So, and yeah, then we get like you said, the recap scenes where John figures out how to collapse the wormhole, but he's not quite sure of the calculations. So he goes talks to Pilot, and Pilot agrees. Actually says that he can see the wormholes for me, which John can't. So that's kind of cool. Shows how alien things are, you know.
Yeah, never thought to
Yeah, yeah.
ask.
And Pilot's like, "Yep, that's how you can do it." And but he doesn't agree with the how to do it because he doesn't want to do it, as it would involve him being literally cut out of Moya and grafted to a transport pod. Eventually, he comes around, and we have some really painful scenes of the crew trying to cut him loose, and he's screaming, and then Stark screaming because, of course. And then while that's going on, he's got to show Shanna and Stark how to do some command stuff while he's away to keep Moya his things systems moving. And he's going too fast. So of course, Shanna does her slow time. Remember that vision thing to get it all down. And of course, goes blind. That's what happens now with her thing. So what do you think about that? Kind of a lot of crew sacrifices going on, lots of emotional scenes, you know, up to now and coming up here.
Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, this is what the show is at its best at, and for me, it all worked. Right, all the crew scenes in the middle right here are right on spot. You know, John. There's a scene of John shooting the equation when it didn't solve, like he couldn't figure it out, so he just shoots the whole paper he's been working on or the notepad. Aaron talking it out with him, which leads him to the breakthrough with him talking about there's never enough time or always about time. The crew, now a family after all these years together, sacrificing for each other. Everybody kind of has their piece of loss to make everything work out. Pilot sacrifices getting out, getting cut out. Shanna sacrifices his vision. You know, everybody else sacrifices putting up with their auntie. I mean, it's all there. So
Yeah, I mean, 4 seasons in, I mean, they're on firing on all cylinders, right? They got the their characters down, their relationships, everything's smooth sailing for season 5. Yeah. And then, yeah, speaking of other emotional scenes, like I mentioned, we got the scenes on the moon and Earth, and I don't know why, but I totally forgot that John's father was an astronaut that walked on the moon, not just an astronaut. And I thought it was kinda
yeah, I've forgotten
yeah,
that too.
and I thought it was
Yeah.
kinda cute that he left a family picture clipped to the American flag that was planted there. That was kinda neat little touch. And then somehow John calls his father on their house phone to tell him what's going on. I'm like, okay, sure, go with it, whatever. And yeah, I get really emotional with their back and forth. It kind of really hit home for me. I guess because my dad halfway across, actually all the way across the country, we don't really see each other. We talk on the phone every once in a while, so kind of similar. And it's kind of nice to get a little brief heads up on what's going on Earth. Sounds like they're getting their act together. They're getting along more. They're working on getting people ready to go out into space. That's kind of cool. And they say their final goodbyes because it's like clock's ticking, John. You can't talk to your dad for an hour. Or maybe it's a final goodbye. I don't know, but and then off we go with the action-packed finish.
Yeah, because there's never enough time, right?
Nope.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I mean, it did make me really sad for Jack. I can't imagine having the prospect of exploring space with his son. Both of them being astronauts, and all the possible future he's got. They discuss grandkids, so you know, there's that prospect of almost if Jack could have gotten to him, he could have been part of that whole adventure and all that. And then it gets ripped away from you right then, as your child has to make the sacrifice to protect the Earth by sacrificing access to his family, right? So, yeah, definitely an emotional beat there in the middle for sure.
Yeah, because they don't know if they're going to see each other again. John says, "Well, I'll try and stay in touch," but yeah, I mean, you have no idea what's going to happen, right?
Well, except for that, we don't have Jack in the Peacekeeper Wars. That was in the
Yeah,
trivia.
so
So
so we'll never know. Yeah,
maybe season 6, right? That was the plot for season
yeah, yeah.
6.
And then Pilot does his thing, as his name suggests. He pilots transport pod back to the wormhole at the exact point of maximum bubble size before it forms. And then we have the really cool, I thought, but confusing bit where the transport pod going back up the wormhole sees the Scaran ship coming down the wormhole, and they like phase through each other, which I thought was really definitely surprised me. I thought maybe they just like pass by one another like really close, be like, oh look out, dodge or whatever, or maybe the Scarens are trying to shoot them, and they dodge away or something. But hey, I mean, for whatever reason, they went with the cool route and did the close up phasing through the thing where you can see like John and Aaron in a transport pod phasing through Pennock and whatever. I thought it was kind of cool. I mean, I guess this was the last episode, so blow out the effects budget. You know, no point in saving money at the end for next episode or next season. It's like if you got the money, use it or lose it, right? So, and of course, then the scares get blown up real good when the wormhole collapses and Akna and Lawrence lost of her lover, apparently, which was Pennock, which I don't think we do either, but okay, sure. And so,
Yeah, that was kind of yeah. Yeah, so similar for me. I mean, once they kind of established the ship was in the wormhole and they were going to collide, I was kind of wondering where they were going to go with it. Part of me thought that they were going to get past, right? Like they would pass each other by, and then you end up with a stranded scaring craft on Earth after all. And so, maybe next season in the world where reality where there's a fifth season, Earth would also have to deal with, what do we do with these Scarens that are here? Yeah, it's not an invasion; it's just one ship. But what does that mean? But no, it just kind of explodes and everybody's good. Wormhole's gone and no risk of that. So
yeah, and they make the point of showing you that it did blow up. It wasn't like they like maybe got knocked off course and like went to another reality or went back to Earth in the past. And next season they'd be like, now Earth's run by Scarens. Who knows? But yeah,
Planet of the Scarens.
yeah, right. And that's the end of the action. Almost. We cut to Moya resting in a calm sea on some planet. I guess healing from her traumatizing experience. Plus, she got shot up by the Scarens. Yeah, we know about that, but yeah, on the way to normal. Pilots merge back where he belongs. Trying to calm back down and get used to being reintegrated. Stark, of course, is flipping out again, and Naranti sprays him down with some kind of spray that she's spraying Pilot to calm him down. So that's kind of funny. Dargo says, I guess the first stop they'll make after Moya heals up is to a Diagnosian nearby where they are to help Chiana with her vision, their blindness. So I thought that was nice. And, John and Aaron are outside in the boat, wherever the boat came from. I don't know. But that's it. Nothing else to see here. Nice, happy ending of the show. Roll the credits. Good night.
So nothing else to see here. Nice way to kick Chiana when she's down there. Um,
Yeah. Pun not intended, but nice anyway.
um, but yeah, I agreed. We get some good resolution with the crew. Everybody gets to catch their breath. We get, we know Pilot's safe and reintegrated. So surely we're all good now. That's a good way to end the show, and we're doing all right.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not quite at the end. Yeah. I
Oh,
guess
we
the
got
funny
one more good scene left to go.
Yeah, we got
Okay,
one
let's
more.
do
Yeah.
it.
So yeah, we got a funny scene where we cut back and forth between John and Aaron in the boat and Dargo, Shanna, and Ragel on Moya with the aliens giving funny commentary on watching the two in the boat. I thought that was pretty funny. Aaron does reveal what she was doing when she visited the surgeon on the command carrier a few episodes ago, which we figured. Yeah, she's having a baby. It's been released from the stasis. And she says it's John's, which of course we knew that. Although really it's probably the other John, but we won't go there. Go back and watch the shows. Figure it out.
It's all timey wimey wibbly wobbly.
Yeah. And then John gets down on his knees and proposes with his mom's engagement ring. She says yes. He puts on her finger. They kiss and fade to black. That's it. Happy ending. Roll the credits.
Right. So now we get the happy ending for our couple that we kind of all know has been coming since the beginning episodes, right? I mean, we've had all the roadblocks throughout the four seasons. We've got spliced D and Alien episodes. We've got duplicate Johns, as you kind of mentioned. We've got Harveys in our head multiple times. But now all is right in the universe. We get the engagement ring, and she says yes.
Yep. Nope. Not quite done. So
Record scratch.
yeah. Man, now on to the real ending. So yeah, after all that wonderful stuff, some alien ship flies by, of course. We see the pilot of the ship, who, by the way, again, blowing through the money, looks amazing, looks really cool. So another shout out to the Jim Henson Feature Shop. It's talking to somebody we can't see. Then his face splits open, showing more eyes underneath the other eyes, and another eye on a stalk, which again, well done, amazing, probably top notch, top creature we've seen in 4 years on the show. That's
I,
saying
I,
something.
yeah, I really agree. I think this was probably my favorite of the aliens for the brief little bit we get it, but it makes you kind of wonder. I know they said they were going to have some people in costume in the next season if they had done that route and kind of mixed that with the puppets. But that's some good puppetry. So, it'd been interesting to see them try to maintain that for an entire season.
Hmm. Yep. Alas. Well, hey, maybe Peacekeeper Wars that might show up. Yeah, we'll see.
Yep. Well, don't get my hopes up.
Yeah. And then the voice says to neutralize the invaders for analysis. Hmm. And then it swoops over, shoots John and Aaron. They turn into some kind of crystal, which of course immediately shatters into 1,000 bits with only the engagement ring on top of the pile. They zoom in on that, and that's it. Good night. Game over. Fade to silent closing credits. The end.
All right. So here we are. I know I complained about a little bit of stuff earlier because I just have to. It's in the contract. But this was my true hang up with this episode. And it's probably more of a commentary on what they were able to do in post production once they knew the show was canceled than on the episode itself. Because, again, I think in the original alternate reality where this had not been the final episode of the show, but just the season finale, that's pretty epic. I mean, that's the way to end it if you're going to come back. But if they were able to make some changes, like changing the opening a little bit and making the silence for the music instead of the music at the ending, and the finally on Farscape and all that kind of stuff, why not trim out this last little bit and end with a happy ending of the engagement? I mean, the scout ship was cool, but if that's all you get, why not just cut it out and give everybody closure?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they thought maybe they would get a season 5 somehow, like if enough people complained or if they changed their mind, if, the Sci-Fi Channel, well, yeah, Sci-Fi Channel at the time, if they changed their minds, or maybe because that was like maybe like what, maybe 2 minutes worth of ending there. So maybe they didn't have enough other stuff to fill in, that 2 minutes if they did want to end it on the boat. I don't know. Or, they could have added some more clips to the front. I don't know. It's
Right,
something,
just
but
double the number of frames.
yeah, or they didn't film enough other stuff to splice in there. I don't know. Or they just wanted to go out the original way they wanted to go out. And oh well.
Yeah, just the heck with it. I don't know.
Yeah. Which I mean, of course, they're not dead. I mean, because unless season 5 happened and Ben and Claudia didn't renew their contracts, but otherwise, they're gonna be dead.
Well,
So
they were busy on Stargate, right? So
yeah, right. Yeah, that could be interesting. Might have missed their chance on those shows. But anyway, so if this would have gone to season 5, which would have been the last season, they would have gotten reformed, and we'd have a whole season or most of a season with Aaron being pregnant, hijinks by the Scarens and the Peacekeepers, and these new Eidolon things that we just saw, and other stuff. Who knows? I mean, maybe it would have ended with John and Aaron back on Earth with the baby and Grandpa Jack. Really cool. But who knows? Just, back at that time, we knew that this completely sucked and this was a terrible cliffhanger to end on. But at least what we got 18 months later, thankfully, was the finale. They in the Peacekeeper War 2-part miniseries, where they wrapped up a good chunk of that proposed season 5 of 22 hours into 3 hours. So at least we got something.
so what you're saying is hold on to our hats because there's a lot to cover coming up next.
Yeah, and a lot more of like what ifs, like how they have to cram stuff in, what was there, what was out.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, it'll be an interesting ride.
All right.
Yeah, you ain't seen nothing yet. At least they got to go out on their own terms. So again, not a lot of shows got to do that back in the day. So, and even now, like,
No, it's a rarity for sure.
all right. So since this is the end of a season, in this case, the series, but we'll just do the season because that's where we are. We'll do what we usually do and kind of go over in no particular order the best and worst of the season. Yeah, so I put my little list together. So we'll see if you agree with what I put down here.
All right.
All right, so let's start off with the best because, and again, no particular order. So we got first off, bad timing this episode, the series
Yep.
finale, another heart-wrenching cliffhanger, and I've said on that, which we just talked about for the last 30 minutes. So,
Yeah. Okay. Which we definitely agree. Again, sentimentality or not, it's going at the top with the top of the list for sure.
yeah, and then we got the also recent memory, the We're So Screwed trilogy, which is episodes 19 to 21. Another fantastic multi-parter with we've always said they do amazingly well. Lots of things get resolved. Lots of things come up. Some things we never knew about popped in this episode. Whatever. Anyway, so, but definitely one of the top trilogies of probably the show.
Agreed.
And then speaking of trilogies, although this is an unofficial trilogy this season, we had the Unrealized Reality, Kansas, and Terra Firma quote unquote trilogy. That was like halfway through the season, episodes 11 through 13. Crichton finally gets home a couple of times, literally. We learn all we ever wanted to know about wormholes, crazy alternate realities, which were cool, one of which was important later, and how Earth could actually realistically react to meeting actual aliens, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll agree with that one being in the top. It had it had higher highs and lower lows, I think, than the other trilogy. You know, the Earth stuff was just amazing in that. And that's probably what puts it above it for me. But there's some of the stuff that just where I get confused that that was more on that one. But anyway, yeah, it goes in the top, but yeah, a little more peaks and valleys.
And poor DK, John's buddy and helped create the Farscape project, dies and he doesn't react to it at all. Well, we don't see him reacting to it, but anyway.
Nope.
Let's see what else we got. The Crichton Kicks, which was episode 1 of the season. Crichton all by himself on the dying Leviathan after being stranded in space after the season 3 cliffhanger. And we get to meet our new wonderful best friend companion, Sokozu.
Agreed. This was a good one as well. I kind of missed the beard, so
Yeah, right. We get 1812 though, so that's kind of cool.
who actually stayed all the way through this episode. So
Yeah, he was there too, so he made it through. And the last of the best that I think is John Quixote, episode 7. I know that kind of was a kind of controversially kind of episode. Some people like it, some people didn't. But this is where the crew was stuck in that bizarre virtual reality game run by a digital Stark who was out to get them. Had some, I thought, hilarious moments. I was just dying laughing on the couch watching this. And we got our final cameo from Virginia Hay reprising Zan, which was her final appearance on the show. So, I mean, I liked it. I thought it was hilarious.
I'll put it in the top just for the Zan reappearance. How about that? Because I agree. Yeah, I miss Zan.
Not as maybe good as the that Looney Tunes cartoon one, which I can't remember the name
That
off the top of my head.
that one kind of was in a league of its own for sure.
Yeah, that
Uh,
one was definitely like, yeah, top level.
that's like top series. Like
Mm.
it's. I mean that and the crackers don't matter because we still talk about that. So
Yeah, even though they don't matter, but we still talk about it. And then, so that was the best. So, of course, we have to have the worst. Again, in no particular order, we have Crew by Clam, episode 10, where they eat the space mollusks and get poisoned and they switch bodies. I mean, it had some funny moments with the body switching, but otherwise,
yeah, uh, filler for sure.
yeah. Then we got the Lavas a Many Splendored Thing. That's episode 4. Just a average episode, boring with space pirates, freedom fighters, kind of, and the cache of valuables and some hijinks and their auntie being weird and like, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah, I think we have a theme of the episodes where there's not a lot of plot movement and it's just kind of filling space. It seems to struggle.
And then the last of the worst, Twice Shy was episode 14. So coming off the great not trilogy, Unrealized Reality, Kansas and Terra Firma, we have another story about why you don't ever pick anybody up you don't know on a transport and take them somewhere. This time, some weird spider lady who wants to eat everybody. Like, okay,
Again, yeah, those three all kind of have the similar problem. So
yeah. And finally, I guess we can get some honorable mentions that weren't the best, but weren't the worst, and weren't okay. They're pretty good. We have the What Was Lost duology. That's episodes 2 through 3, where we get to meet Graza. Jewel departs the crew from her last season appearance. She stays on that planet to help nearly temporarily released inhabitants. We had that like space Bermuda Triangle kind of thing, and they had like the little uh, creature from the Black Lagoon guy. It's a pretty good episode. It's pretty
yeah,
good.
I like that one.
Yeah, I think we've also learned that some of the symbols that John sees on that planet are like Earth symbols. So there might be some reason why our Sebastians from Earth or are Earthlings from Sebastians. Like they don't go that far, but say it kind of like has some possible mythology that could have been cool if they would have brought that forward, but they didn't.
Right.
Although it could explain why he and Aaron are compatible and are having a kid. So, hey, still fun.
Yeah.
Then we have a Mental as Anything, episode 15, where the boys go on a mental training retreat, and we get to learn how Darver's wife died and how he became a prisoner of the Peacekeepers, which is, good filling in of the character backstory.
Yeah. I seem to remember I really liked the Dargo part. I was not as impressed with the mental training, which seemed to do anything. But yeah,
Yeah. Although it
guess
is referenced in this episode.
it is. But yet Harvey's still there too. So I'm
Yeah, right.
confused. But
And then finally, we got the Bringing Home the Beacon. I said right this time, not bacon, like I said last time on the podcast, which was the next episode, episode 16, which was the girls trip episode, which, it's pretty good. And it starts the ending arc of the season with the whole scaring Peacekeeper peace talks starting and Aaron getting kidnapped and all the fun that happens after that, which ended the season.
and the scene with where John's shooting the bioloid was probably worth the price of admission on that one.
Anything else you remember about the season that we kind of, I guess, pretty much talked about probably 2/3 of the season here.
Yeah,
So,
nothing else standing out. I think you nailed the list. Even though I picked apart a couple of them, but definitely agree on the highs. I mean, sucker for endings, but even ignoring the fact that you got left for 4 years and or 18 months. I said 4 years.
mhm.
We got 4 seasons, 18 months of cliffhanger. And
It
I
felt
at
like
least
4 years, but yeah.
and I know the fix is coming. Right, we've got it to look forward to. I do think that the last bit of this was really good, and I think this shows how good a show like this can get 4 seasons in. Right, they've got a lot of stuff figured out. It was working. I guess not enough to get renewed for season 5 on Siffy. Uh, yeah. Overall, I think this is one of the better seasons of the show.
Unfortunately, the last season, but yep, they were doing wonderful things like most sci-fi series do, and then get the rug yanked out from them. But again, they get to wrap it up in a nice little bow, which not a lot of series can say that. So speaking of which, of course, next time we'll go right into Peacekeeper Wars. Nope, sorry, we hate to leave you with a cliffhanger, but tonight, but tonight as we record this, season 2 of Daredevil: Born Again debuts on Disney Plus. So we'll be covering that for the next couple of podcasts. And then we'll get back to Farscape and cover the Peacekeeper Wars miniseries. So, not a long a wait today as we had to wait for the real conclusion 20 years ago. So just a little bit, just a smidge of a delay. So hang in there. We'll get there.
Yeah, but for now, we've got to go a city to go save.
Yep. And cameos from former defenders and all that's good stuff. So
Yep.
stay tuned for that next time. And eventually, as if you keep listening, you'll know when we're going to hit the Peacekeeper Wars to wrap up the show we've come to love, or at least you've come to love. I loved for 20 years, but anyway, so hang in there. We'll get to it, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.